Our guest is one of America's preeminent pollsters, a friend of this podcast, Democrat Jim Gerstein. Jim, ever since the last presidential elections, Democrats have been really gloomy. Looking at Tuesday's blowout for Democrats across the country, New Jersey, New York, California, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, it's awful hard to be gloomy. Happy days may be here again is the chorus. Jim, did you expect a sweep of this magnitude? And what does it mean?
Well, first, thanks, Al. Great to see you guys. I Most of the people in my world were not surprised by the fact that we won these elections. I think the magnitude of the victory, the size of the victory, was a little bit larger than many of us expected. We did think that this has all the markings right now of a blue wave, all the indicators that you would see in the odd year leading into the midterms are good. And we had all these special elections in 2025 that we were outperforming in 2024 by 10, 15 points, big races too, like the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. So this wasn't a surprise, but it really feels good. And we needed this, and I'm hoping that this puts a bookend on the chapter of Democrats beating up on Democrats over how bad we are, because I think so much of that was driven by the bad feeling of losing that 2024 presidential election, and now we are back to winning elections, and I think that's probably the best thing that we could do for a morale boost and regain some of that energy that Democrats
Boy, it's
need.
a different tone and tune today. But, and Virginia Spanberger, as you say, was expected to win, but she even carried the attorney general candidate in with her, despite his sexting scandal. I thought he was probably dead. The great Speaker of the House there noted there were 7 or 8, I forget which, Republican seats that Harris carried. And he said, we're going to win them all. Well, he did. And he won about 7 more. I mean, they picked up, I think, as many as 13 seats in the state legislature. They have like a 63 to, 37 majority now. Counties like Chesterfield or Richmond suburb, which Glenn Youngkin carried 4 years ago, Spanberger not only won, she won it, in a rout. And good candidates obviously matter, and she was a good candidate. I assume those assembly candidates were. But wasn't anti-Trump a key element in Virginia as well as elsewhere, Jim?
For sure. Look, I think there is a common thread between these victories across the country. And let's make no mistake, I mean, this is a sweeping, massive victory all over the country. And the common line across all of it is primarily the cost of living and how hard it is for people to keep up with costs. We see this in every focus group. It's in every poll. People really have trouble keeping up with the cost of living, and they see a president and a Republican Congress that is doing nothing to address the cost of living. If anything, they're seen as making it worse, whether it's cutting Medicaid, whether it's the big, beautiful bill that gives tax cuts to billionaires and makes it harder for working people. There's just a range of things that tie together with the opposition to Trump. Of course, in Virginia, it was a big deal, but it also was a big deal in New Jersey because
Well, yeah,
the
it was. I mean,
governor there tied
yeah,
himself to Trump.
totally. I mean, Jack Ciattarelli was a Trump clone more than he was 4 years before. And, New Jersey is supposed to be close. And I heard, people say Cheryl wasn't a great candidate. I've known her for 7 years. I think she's terrific. I certainly didn't expect to win like that, but she is an enormously impressive a young Democratic politician. She not only won in a landslide, like her good friend Spanberger, she helped Democrats in state legislative races. And as you say, when Ciattarelli tied himself to Trump, that was just a massive miscalculation.
Yeah, I mean, he is failing to address the biggest problem in people's lives, and that is how much things cost. And
Yeah.
they don't like the way he's doing things. They don't like what he's doing. And voters are finally having a chance to speak out and release that energy they have against him.
Well, New York City was a really impressive win by Mondani. He is a terrific communicator. He's a socialist, and while his solutions are different, he really defined the problems very similarly to what Spanberger and Sherrill was saying: affordability, cost of living, healthcare, housing, groceries. So I think there's a similarity there, even though there are great divisions on the solution. Republicans are going to try to make him a socialist, the future of the Democratic Party. That is BS. I'm going to say it nicely for you, Jim. James and I could tell you the last mayor from New York City to achieve any higher office was the immortal John Hoffman in 1869. I did not cover that race, Jim. I mean, it's just it'll be a great Republican talking point. But I think, and our friend Susan Swecker said, those two women governors are the face of the Democratic Party today.
No, I mean, if you watched Fox News last night, you know what their assessment of the election was? Well, of course, Democrats were going to win it in Virginia and
Right.
New Jersey. Yeah, that was their first thing. Second, the polls were all wrong. Of course, that was the Republican polls that were wrong. And third, it was Mamdani's a socialist. So obviously, that's what the Republicans are going to try and hang their hats on. But the reality is, the lessons that come out of this election that apply to the midterms are rooted in the New Jersey, Virginia races. The most important thing that happened last night, if you're looking to 2026, is we essentially picked up 5 congressional seats last night because of the referendum in California. Not that is the single most important outcome as you look forward to 2026 in terms of what happened last night. But in terms of lessons learned and where things are going, I think we look at the range of things from Virginia, New Jersey, Mississippi. We picked up uh, two state rep seats that I'm sure James
Those
is
are
aware.
Senate, the state Senate. They
Yeah,
lost a
right.
supermajority in the state Senate.
Yeah.
And in Minnesota, the Democrats now control the state Senate, which they didn't before.
Yeah.
Minnesota's not as blue as people think.
And 2
Right.
public utility posts in Georgia. Just one
Georgia.
thing, and then I want to turn it over to James. Just about Fox. It was the Fox poll that came closest to showing how big Sherrill would win in New Jersey. So I'm sorry the Fox anchors didn't have a chance to look at their own poll. James Carville.
So, Jim, I like to play little games here. So you're the poster, and any of us jump in and out if you want with your views as well as discussion. We have a Republican incumbent is a +5 R district. And they call us in to have a meeting. How do we handle the Trump issue? How do we handle this? Do we break from Trump? But and somebody says, well, if you do that, you're going to get primaried. The guy right to primary you. Yeah, 63% of the Republicans in this district want you to stick with Trump. How would you middle this? Just off the top of your head.
Well, I think the Republicans, they have a problem on their hands. They've got a president with low job approval, dragging them down, who they're afraid to break from. So they have, for all the problems people like to talk about the Democrats, I mean, the Republicans have a major problem on their hands on how to exactly play out what the challenge that you're presenting to their consulting team. I think that, and as you know, when you're facing a wave, it's really hard to do anything. And I think for them, it's really, they're going to have to do some triage. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but every indicator is good. I think if I were a Republican consultant, which I'm glad I'm not, I would say that they need to find a way to break from Trump without them primarying them. And I don't even know how much that's going to do. But they're going to want to really localize their races. I don't know how well they're going to do that. I like our hand today more than certainly more than I did going into 2024. And I like our hand today a lot more than they should like their hand.
Okay, so let's say that you walk across the hall and it's a Democratic senator and you called in. And they say, look, people are going to go hungry, and we can visit some of this stuff later. Let's give a short through Thanksgiving extension without getting the health care subsidies, and we can negotiate and we can come back and revisit this. But right now, the most important thing to do is, and we have people in food banks, we have people in food lines. There's real food insecurity in the United States, and I need your advice on whether I should vote through December 1st to fund the government. Then we can revisit it.
Look, if we want to look at this through the political lens,
That's what we're looking at. You're opposed to. We're asking for your political advice.
I
But
think
just so you know, a nutrition expert have come in before you and say this. People are going to food banks. They're running short. People are trying to donate. But we're going to cause people to be hungry. And all I'm saying, should we extend to December 1st?
Right. I think from a political perspective,
that's what we asked you. You're opposed to.
This is the first opportunity that Democrats have had since the election to show people what they really stand for and what they're fighting for, and this is every indication is that this is the public is on the Democrat side. The public, it goes back to the cost of living, and what the Democrats are outlining here or fighting for here is to prevent a massive increase in the cost of health insurance. They're trying to restore Medicaid cuts, and backing down from that position makes no sense to me politically. I think, Democrats have a winning hand here. People know that the Republicans are in charge. Republicans are the ones that are shutting down this government because they won't address the cost of living. And to the senator, I would say, you got no good choices under Donald Trump. People are hungry, or they're going to lose, or their health insurance is going to skyrocket. Well, let's be on the side of the working people who we need to help keep that cost of living down for them. And it seems obvious to me politically.
Yeah, I would add, Senator, if you do that, you may very well get primary. Okay.
If you what?
I mean, there's no Democratic appetite to give them anything remotely what they want, and that has really changed since today.
Exactly.
Okay.
James, let me just say one more thing. Democrats' favorability is going up with Democrats.
Of course,
it had been depressed with Democrats, but they didn't have an opportunity to fight.
Your Republicans had 88% favor view of their party. Democrats had a 41% favor view of their party because we lost. And I don't like, it goes much, much, much deeper than that.
Yes.
What should now the Democrats have? Will probably be starting to get another look. Wasserman texted me last night and said that Hispanic shift in New Jersey was just mind-boggling. Okay, now people are gonna rush and comment. The Hispanics are now. We didn't realize how Democratic they were. I don't think they're that Democratic. I think. What are you going to recommend that Democrats do between now and the midterms to solidify Hispanic vote and make some inroads into small town and rural America? I mean, which we sorely need. These problems, we rented the Hispanics for election cycle. We don't own them at all. Mm-hmm. And I looked through some of the results in Virginia, rural Virginia. They were a little better, but they were still bad. I mean, Fairfax, and you couldn't. Now, City Alexandria was 87%. But
I think we know that the Hispanic vote is persuadable in both directions. And what you're asking, what should we be doing? Right now, we see that it is persuading back towards the Democrats. And I would continue, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but I went to the James Carville School of Communications, and that it's the cost of living. And we continue demonstrating fight to reduce the cost of living for people. And you go back to the shutdown. This is what we are fighting for in this shutdown. I think that is very helpful for winning the Hispanic vote, as well as the vote across the electorate.
Jim, just a quick to pick up on James, then I'll turn right back to James.
Yeah,
Passaic
go ahead.
County, New Jersey has the largest Latino percentage of any county in New Jersey. Trump carried it in 2024. She won it by more than 15 yesterday. So that says
Yeah.
a lot. Anyway, James.
I'll tack on one thing of that. Texas, they rewrote this whole redistricting thing is instigated by Texas, right?
Right.
Where they thought that they were going to pick up 5 seats through their remap. They might, but they're banking on a Hispanic vote there that is no longer what they were banking on a Hispanic vote looking like it did in 2024.
Right.
And it is not likely to be to look that way. They may only be getting 3 seats instead of 5 seats out of that redistrict, whereas in California, we're going to net 5 seats most likely.
So this is going to be a big argument, and this is going to be this show, I'm sure, is going to delve into this. There've been really exhaustive analytics done after 2024 election. One of them been done American Bridge, which was headed up by Mitch Landrieu, which focused on working class voters. Another was broader, and it's really deep, by a guy named Brazelton. He was one of the 3 people I've looked at. It was really good. It was rich in detail. And the conclusion is the same, that we were really hurt by identity politics. There's no doubt about that. It's been pointed out that Rubin and Alyssa Slotkin and Jackie Rosen and Tammy Baldwin ran 2.5 points ahead of Harris, and Bernie Sanders, Liz Warren actually ran 2.5 points behind him. And now you have the election of Madani. So there's 2 schools of thought. There's the Ezra Klein school, who I think should never be dismissed, that the Democrats need to have big tent politics. There's a growing school of people that say, why don't you just call yourself a democratic socialist and not a Democrat? Because the baggage you bring to the election may not be worth the votes you have. That argument is coming.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be stopped. And it's coming more now. And I don't, I think now I want him to succeed. There's 8 million people he's saying he's keeping, when everybody's, well, maybe the guy gets in there, we'll see. But do you have a view on that argument?
Yeah, I think any candidate, the identity politics doesn't work, and especially in these in the places that are going to make the difference in the majority. And the candidates need to be, I think they should just get out of the political argument and focus on what they are delivering for their voters. And it doesn't have to, they don't need to invoke any of that. I just don't see the advantage to it. But of course, they need to do what they need to get to 50% plus 1. And that is being an advocate for their voters or their constituents in a period in which they're struggling and they're dying. They're hungry for somebody who gets them and somebody who's going to speak for them.
So what people will tell me is, James, look, you've won this fight. AOC has scrubbed her sight of all pronouns. They just don't talk about it anymore. Let it go. And I guess I'll just give you my view and turn it over to Al. I'm not sure these people are worth the trouble. I know that they've taken their pronouns down. I know that we don't talk about transition surgery for prisoners or anything like that. But maybe we need to just affirmatively attack it. I don't know. We'll have other shows. You're a poster. You got to build coalitions. I'm a provocateur. I got to provoke arguments here, but we'll see. Albert,
I want to come. I think that, Jim, you raised a really good point about the redistricting. I think just a couple months ago, it looked like, and I heard analysts say that Republicans are going to pick up, as many as a dozen net seats. That is starting to crumble. You noted Texas beat California, but the Democrats are going to gerrymander in other places now. Virginia, top of the list, Maryland, and in some Republican states, they're balking. Kansas. And in Missouri, they may face a referendum. They've done it, but I think that referendum would lose. And Jim, you know this better than anyone. I think the best model may have been what happened in the General Assembly in Virginia yesterday, and to some extent New Jersey, where they far exceeded expectations in picking up those local seats. And I would guess as of today, off the wall, Democrats are poised to win anywhere between 10 and 30 seats next year in the midterms. Does that seem crazy to you?
I think that unless the Supreme Court redraws the map of the South, which is a big concern, or allows them to eliminate numerous black representation in the House of Representatives. That is a concern. But you take that out, I think we are poised on, we have the possibility of a wave election here. And I think 10 to 30, sure. If I were betting on this, the Democrats have the advantage to win the House. And I think the Senate is in play.
It is.
I think last night showed us that the electorate in 2025 was much different than the electorate in 2024. And I suspect 2026 is going to look a lot more Democratic. Just the composition of the electorate is going to be much more Democratic than it was in 2024. And we have some really good candidates running in some tough states, but I think this is very doable.
Well, sometimes things occur that people don't fully appreciate at the time. One of those was yesterday in Pennsylvania, the state Supreme Court retention. Those state Supreme Courts have played a huge role in redistricting, to the Democrats' huge detriment in North Carolina and Ohio, but to their advantage in Pennsylvania. And what that vote in Pennsylvania yesterday did, and Josh Shapiro deserves lots of credit for it, that virtually assured that the Democrats will control the state Supreme Court for the foreseeable future. So that was a really important victory that really was under the radar, Jim.
Sure was. And again, I want to remind people that we won big state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin earlier this year by 10 points.
Right.
In a state that was a toss-up state. These are critical elections, and we've been doing very, very well this year. And I think it should give us hope to be on offense going into the next year.
Well, I gave Shapiro credit a moment ago, and he certainly deserves it. Gavin Newsom deserves huge credit. It looks, they won 64-36 or something. When that began, there was great concern that maybe this was a mistake. And Newsom I think maneuvered, bullied, persuaded his way through, and did just an extraordinary job. And that was, as you say, if they had lost that referendum yesterday, I think our feelings about the House might be different.
So, Jim, your favorite cocktail party thing to talk about something that no one else has talked about in the election that might have been unnoticed that signals something. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, that every school board member that run on this anti-trans shit was ousted. All right? And we better not forget that, because when they start their stuff, maybe we should start back. But I thought that was interesting. And, as you know, in 2024, Bucks is usually the swing county and the swing state and it swings so much, or put it in your backyard. Okay. But I thought that was something that could have ramifications going forward. I really do. Albert?
Well, yeah, the other, talking about people who deserve credit. I'll tell you, one thing we learned the final weekend was Barack Obama has not lost his magic. Those campaign rallies in New Jersey and Virginia, which I actually watched most of them, were electric. And I think, I don't know that it affected many votes at the end. But, if I'm running anywhere in the country, I think I wouldn't mind having the former president come in and give me a helping hand.
There's one former, there's a couple former presidents I'd want, and there's one that I wouldn't want campaigning with.
Yeah. And maybe a former vice president too. But in any event, no, it was good. I just it's awful hard to find any bad news. James's Bucks County observation is really important. That is such a swing district. They got a Republican congressman there who survived everything. He's enormously popular, but I'd worry a little bit if I were him. And James, you mentioned to me, I guess last night, in Georgia, they won 2 public utilities.
Women.
I mean,
63%.
Yeah. And that also is a harbinger of an issue that's going to potentially advantage Democrats. James, you want to pick up on
I
that?
do have one final question. Jim, yeah, I know this issue, but you know it better than anybody in the world. In Israel, talk about it just a second. The Hasidim, the ultra Orthodox, have been exempt from serving in the military, which has been a sticky issue for a long time. Let's just leave it at that. And the Supreme Court has now said they must serve. How much? Give us how Bibi's coalition, or just a brief thing about Bibi's coalition, and does this put his coalition in danger?
Yeah, it's a great question. His coalition's been in danger ever since October 7th. And he manages to keep that coalition together for no other reason than the people in the coalition who are able to bring it down have no incentive to bring it down because they will lose seats in the next election.
Mhm.
So by
Okay.
law, the next election needs to be by October of 2026. That's getting closer and closer. Conventional wisdom in Israel is that there will be an election sometime between March and June, largely because of the issue that you're talking about, is that just the ultra-Orthodox parties are unable to, the tension between them and the need to pass a law as mandated by the Supreme Court that would require ultra-Orthodox service in the military. That pressure is building so much that it may force a coalition crisis. But this crisis has been there throughout for most of his administration. That's just a long way of saying they've managed to put this off over and over again. Legislative delays, legislative tactics, things that just drag it out. I'm in the camp that Netanyahu will do an election as late as possible because he's just hoping for something to change in the political dynamic there that could help him come back from the deep.
It's fair to say this accelerates. You can't legislate. You're going to have to do something sooner, sooner, not later.
True. It adds pressure. There's so many delaying tactics. This has been going on for so long. It just adds more pressure on the ability to keep the coalition together. It's not like there's a date now that they say this has to be done by this date. Otherwise, the government falls. It doesn't work that way.
Okay. Oh, man, I can't thank you enough.
Well, the other great, let's stay on Israel for a little bit, James, because we got a real expert here. The other great schism with the ultra-Orthodox that played into it, an army intelligence chief was arrested because she leaked video of Israeli troops really molesting Palestinian prisoners. But what I found was the reaction. The ultra-Orthodox were outraged at her and saying she ought to be punished, and some of the rest of the country was outraged.
I don't know.
And thinks those troops ought to be. That just adds to the fissures over there, doesn't it, James? And tells us
it is such a divided, polarized society right now. There, everything is. This is a horrible story. What happened with the military advocate general? It was their version of an Abu Ghraib almost. What happened at this detention, and she did authorize the leaking of the footage, and then lied about it, and it just reinforced it added fuel to the fire of the right-left divide there, because on the right side of the ledger, they were outraged that this was out there and making soldiers look bad. On the left side of the ledger, it was how are we allowing our military to conduct themselves this way? And it's an awful mess. She is now in detention. There was a suicide concern about her because her car was parked on the beach and her cell phone was missing, and all of this it consumed the news until they found her. It's an awful situation on this issue.
I hope this isn't true, but I read up yesterday, I think the polls show Bibi bouncing back and even ahead. Tell me it's not true, will you please, Jim?
I can help you feel better. It is not true.
Good.
What is so fascinating about what's going on in the electorate in Israel right now, and polling in Israel, is Netanyahu has had a series of things that typically a prime minister would, the country would rally around the prime minister because of perceived success. The Iran war in Israel was seen as a big success,
Right.
and he got zero political bump out of it. Bringing home the hostages, finally, after 2 years in captivity, and getting a ceasefire, that was something that was overwhelmingly supported by the public, but Netanyahu got zero political bump out of it. At the end of the day, what you see is that the public in Israel is not forgiving Netanyahu and his coalition partners for the failure of October 7th. He's skated by. He's gotten past corruption scandals in the past, all the problems that people have with him. He's gotten past it because of his image on security. That image was really heavily damaged on October 7th, and he's the only person in a position of leadership who is still standing and hasn't taken responsibility and stepped down since then. So it's not even close right now in terms of public polls. The opposition bloc has about 70 seats in polling compared to 50 seats for the coalition bloc. The only question is, ultimately, will he be able to negotiate his way back into the government, depending on the outcome in which parties in the opposition bloc emerge?
So if he doesn't, there may be another place waiting for him, which isn't as comfortable as the government seat. A prison cell. One final question for me, and then James can wrap it up. I think Trump does deserve credit for helping end the war. He did what Biden foolishly refused to do. He stood up to Bibi, but Gaza is far from settled, Jim, and the two-state solution doesn't look any closer than it has for the last 10 years.
No, I mean, like, the first most important thing is that there's a ceasefire. The bombing, the killing, the death on both sides is hopefully over for now, and gonna hold, and that those hostages are home. All those living hostages are home. Now
Right.
it is still a mess. Hamas has not returned all of the remains of the dead hostages. This is a big sticking point in Israel. There is shooting against Israeli soldiers who are on the other side, on the correct side of the ceasefire lines. Some have died. There's still lingering things that are very problematic, very painful for both sides, because there's still been Palestinians dying as well in countermeasures. So whether or not this really holds and whether or not there's an advancement is going to depend on American and international leadership. And it's hard to bank on that for sure.
Pessimism usually pays in the Middle East, I'm afraid. But James Carville, you want to?
So I guess, Jim, in the years that we've been in this, have been longer than you, but we've been doing it. I was friends since the late 90s. And when you know something and you forget something, it really pisses you off. And I'd actually fallen into something I should have known better. And that is Spanberger is going to win. I could see that. She could win by as much as 10, but I think Cheryl could lose. And there's a law of political physics. You cannot win Virginia by 10 and lose New Jersey. It can't happen. You can't win Pennsylvania by 4 and lose Michigan. And God damn it, I fell into it. I started believing what, and by the way, the polling would confirm that there was going to be a differential. It was barely any differential. And I don't know of a single person that didn't fall into that trap, including me.
And me.
And I said, it's back to knife. If we can win Virginia by 10 and New Jersey by 5, that would be over. We won both by 14. We're old, we experienced, and we're stupid. Okay?
James, we didn't pay enough attention to the New Jersey Fox poll that showed Cheryl winning by close to.
We didn't, but we all, to a person. And I'd say, it's political physics, but this time it may not be. It's gravity always is there. There's no exception to the rule. I just a general point to say, if you listen to this show and you think we know everything about politics, we don't. we fell into the oldest trap you could fall into, that it was going to be a huge differential. I think Virginia might be officially more blue than New Jersey. I don't know that, but it's not much difference.
Yeah, I'll take that competition. I think it's a good competition for us to have, as to which one's more.
You know, they
more
also
blue.
they're
I'm
less
wiping
populous.
egg off my face.
Well, you know, but they're less populous, but they turn out more voters than New Jersey. I mean, it really is interesting.
I think the federal workers issue in Virginia is a big deal.
Yeah. Again, we didn't. New Jersey. Yeah, you're right. We had everything going for us. Yeah, but by the way, if we won the Attorney General's race, I'm personally going to find a convicted pedophile and run him in a race just to see if he could beat a Republican. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that convicted pedophile could win. And by the way, the guy that was running against him ran a pretty good campaign and ran ads. And I mean, it just the most interesting thing. Okay, drum roll. I'm gonna give you all the most interesting piece of news of this cycle. Even more interesting in Bucks County. The Republican legislator who released the text lost, and Jay won.
Yeah,
I mean, just a little tidbit. Hey, you got some baggage out there with Trump people. Just know that.